A steady hush lay over the deserted sidewalks, broken only by the whisper of wind through broken windows. Once, this metropolis was a showcase of grand ambition, its high-rises reaching proud into the sky, each new technological marvel celebrated in glimmering corridors and bustling streets. Now it was a husk of itself, vines slithered across asphalt, creeping up once imposing facades, while wisps of greenery peeked out from open doorways. Chunks of pavement had erupted, giving way to roots and shrubs, and the city's once buzzy places were carpeted in wildflowers, petals swaying in the shifting breeze. Among this lush wilderness stood silent reminders of a bygone era. Twisted metal, flickering neon signs gutted of power, and a lingering sense that the world had moved on long ago. Marlowe entered this world at dawn, boots crunching over shattered glass scattered across what might have been a grand avenue. She carried a small pack, survival knife, and keen curiosity, her every step weighted by a sense of necessity. Her settlement, miles away through the dusty remains of civilization, had grown desperate. Stories told of marvels left behind in this city, wildly advanced technology, robotic creations that once coexisted with the human population. The meltdown that forced everyone to flee had spawned rumors of wonders and dangers alike. If anything here could ease hardship back home, it was worth the risk to find it. She stepped over crushed rubble, passing beneath the battered remains of a colossal sign. Most letters had rusted away, leaving only fragments. _Elcombe, _O, _H, _city. The rest was illegible. The hush weighed on her, each scuff of her boots echoing around her, until it seemed the city itself might stir. Her hand tightened on her knife hilt. She had heard stories of mechanical beasts that roamed these overgrown streets, vestiges of a grand experiment. Whether they were docile or deadly was anyone's guess. An odd low rumble came from a side street, and a shiver of apprehension traveled over her skin. She paused to scan the gloom. Nothing moved, just debris and thick vines. She let the silence swallow her for a moment longer, then edged forward, careful to maintain a low profile. Rounding a corner, she found a once elegant plaza choked with brambles. Broken columns surrounded a fountain where water still trickled, collected from broken pipes overhead. The fountain's base was adorned with relief sculptures, humans holding hands with mechanical animals. Now pitted with rust, their faces had eroded, leaving behind expressions that looked haunted. Marlowe squatted by the fountain, lowering a canteen to the slimy water. She took in small gulps, keenly aware that testing its purity was impossible. The water tasted faintly metallic. Still, it was better than thirst. Vines had nearly draped the entire fountain, persistent green winding around the sculpted figures, as nature reclaimed whatever had been built in defiance of time. More guttural noises echoed, but they still seemed distant. As she rose to continue, a flicker of motion in her peripheral vision caught her eye. She turned slowly. There, peering from behind a toppled billboard, was a metallic deer. Its elegant frame shone in the dim morning light, delicate legs supporting a slender body of polished steel. A pair of antlers spread upward in branching arcs, gilded with designs reminiscent of circuitry. Soft, synthetic fur covered parts of its torso, giving it an uncanny semblance of life. The deer twitched its head, mechanical eyes glowing in ethereal white against the surrounding green. For a moment, creature and traveler simply observed each other. Marlowe's heart hammered. She had never seen such a lifelike machine. She took a slow step forward and the deer tensed, ready to spring. Another step, barely a whisper on the pavement, and it bolted, disappearing into the vines in a flash of silver. Its swift movements revealed fluid mechanics, so perfectly engineered that it mimicked a real living deer. Left with only the rustle of branches and the pounding of her pulse, Marlowe exhaled shakily, wondering how many such creations roamed these abandoned blocks. She pressed onward, weaving through alleyways and pockets of collapsed buildings. In places, entire roads had turned into miniature forests. Towering gates, which once protected sleek corporate entrances, were now frames for woven ropes of ivy. A hush lay over everything, but she sensed the city breathing with its new heartbeat, pulsing with the slow, unhurried throb of nature. Every so often she caught glimpses of mechanical creatures, spidery drones with multiple jointed legs creeping across a stone ledge, or a shimmering flock of robot birds perched on gnarled branches that sprouted from the side of a decaying office tower. They watched her with bright electronic eyes, but none approached. She found a shattered sign that read, "Biomechanical Laboratory, authorized personnel only." The building behind it looked promising. Its facade had partially collapsed, revealing a dark passage inside. A sign posted by the entrance hung lopsided, battered, pioneering the future of sustainable robotics. The door was stuck open, jammed by twisted metal, allowing her easy entry. She steeled herself and stepped in. The lab corridors yawned before her, bathed in half-shadows. She turned on a hand-cranked flashlight to scan the walls. Broken glass lined the floor, and half-rusted lab tables sagged under the weight of dust and debris. On a corroded console, she spotted a row of test tubes containing murky fluids, some still faintly glowing. Water dripped somewhere, forming little rivulets along the cracked tiles. She imagined scientists here once treated robotic animals with the same care that veterinarians gave real creatures, ensuring the machines could integrate into the wild without harming the ecosystems. That was the dream. Or so the rumors said. Until everything went catastrophically wrong. A faint crash sounded behind her and she spun, heart hammering. A shape moved in the darkness, a live, powerful form. His green eyes glowed like embers. Slowly, a mechanical panther emerged from behind an overturned cabinet, skin of polished black metal and the suggestion of rippling muscles beneath. Marlowe's breath caught in her throat. The cat advanced a few steps, silent, regal, each step revealing the gleam of hidden gears. For a moment, they simply regarded each other. Then, perhaps deciding she was unthreatening prey or uninteresting, it let out a low metallic growl and slipped away into the broken corridor. Air rushed from her lungs only after it was gone. Nerves taut, she retraced her steps and withdrew from the lab. If mechanical predators truly stalked the city, she couldn't risk venturing too deep with nothing but a crude blade. She needed more information, more caution. The city had lured her in with the promise of salvage, but surviving to bring anything back was no guarantee. Down a narrow alley, she nearly stumbled over a prone figure, except it wasn't human. It was a small mechanical fox, splayed with wires and tiny servos exposed. Its synthetic fur charred along one flank. A bullet hole marred its ribcage. Alarm coursed through her at the realization that someone else was out here, clearly armed, shooting the very machines that inhabited this place. Whether for part, sport, or fear, the motive felt ominous. She moved on, keeping to the edges, scanning every rooftop and dark cranny. Eventually, she reached a massive plaza in what must have been the city's core. In its center rose a huge statue of a robed figure pointing confidently to the sky, a monument to ambition now smothered in clinging vines. Mechanical creatures of all shapes mingled amid the urban flora. A robotic giraffe stretched its serpentine neck to nibble the highest leaves of a towering tree. Nearby, a cluster of shining monkey-like automatons leapt between branches. Even the metallic panther she'd glimpsed in the lab sat perched on a fallen column, surveying the others. For a brief, surreal moment, all was peace. The hush of the city held no menace, only the hum of a new equilibrium. Marlowe watched, hidden, enthralled by a scene so profoundly strange that it felt spiritual. As dusk approached, she left the plaza and found a decrepit fire escape leading to a rooftop. Though many floors had collapsed, part of the steel staircase remained. Climbing detritus-choked steps, she emerged on a rooftop that granted a sweeping view of the city. The sun sank over the horizon in a burst of red and gold, illuminating the ruptured skyline. Vines snake across rooftops, and patches of greenery sprouted from shattered windows. She set up her meager camp, a threadbare blanket and a single can of beans. Sleep came in fragments, haunted by images of metallic eyes and the silent, relentless creep of vines. She woke before dawn to a metallic shriek echoing across the rooftops. Bolting upright, she peered over the edge in time to see a small group of armed strangers creeping through the ruins. They wore ragged clothes, faces hidden beneath masks, rifles clutched in their hands. One lifted a device to emit a sound like a wounded animal. The same cry she'd heard, presumably luring some mechanical quarry. The thought of them killing these strange creatures for parts or profit tightened a knot in her stomach. Slipping away, she descended the opposite side of the building, finding a path that kept her hidden. Gunfire tore the early morning stillness. She ducked behind jagged rubble. The echoes reverberated across broken main streets. Slivers of pity for the city's mechanical inhabitants fought with her own survival instinct. She pressed on, stumbling through a once glorious theater with grand marble pillars toppled in heaps. Behind the stage, she discovered half-functioning monitors replaying archival footage, engineers conferring with ecologists, early test runs of mechanical deer and rhinos forging close bonds with real animals. The final minutes of the recording dissolved into a burst of static, leaving the meltdown's exact nature a mystery. The city's dream ended in abrupt, ruinous silence. She gazed at the flickering images, heavy with the knowledge of how fragile even the greatest endeavors could be. She left the theater to discover pitched chaos a few blocks away. Those armed strangers had cornered the black metal panther. Its flank pressed to a collapsed building. It snarled in defiance, luminous eyes darting for possible escape routes. One of the hunters shouted a command, leveling his rifle. The big cat lunged, knocking him down. Another pulled the trigger. A bullet careened into the panther's hindquarters, sending sparks flying. It growled, a haunting mixture of animal rage and mechanical distortion. Hidden behind a chunk of concrete, Marlowe's heart pounded. Logically, she should remain unnoticed, let them hunt their prize and leave her out of it. But she recalled the panther's regal bearing and the raw presence of these mechanical creatures, living in quiet dignity in the city's ruins. She found her legs moving before she could stop herself. Muttering a quick prayer, she stood and hurled a piece of debris at one of the shooters. He flinched, the shot going wide. Another turned his weapon on her. She dove behind a twisted car door just as gunfire roared, bullet sparks lighting the gloom. The panther took advantage of the distraction, swiping a third hunter off his feet. Shouts filled the air, and it was impossible to tell who was more enraged. Marlowe made a break for it, calling to the panther, though she had no idea if it understood. The cat locked its gaze on her, muzzle flashing with steel fangs, then bounded. Electrically charged adrenaline coursed through her veins as she sprinted down an alley. Behind, the men regrouped, rifles barking. A bullet ricocheted off a broken street sign, the metallic ping resonating in Marlowe's ears. The panther kept pace, though it now favored its wounded leg, leaving a splatter of oily fluid. At the alley's end, they discovered a partially collapsed subway. Plunging into the darkness, they vanished beneath the city's ruined streets. Down there, the tang of damp stone stung her nostrils. Drips of water plunked into stagnant pools. The tunnels emerged onto an abandoned platform, littered with broken turnstiles and graffiti-ridden walls. Marlowe cast her flashlight around the gloom. The panther tottered, collapsing onto its side with a metallic groan. Concern tightening her chest, she knelt to inspect the damage. Oil seeped from the pierced plating, wires frayed at the edges. She removed her cloak, tearing strips to fashion a makeshift bandage. The creature trembled under her touch, letting out a soft, rumbling growl, but it did not resist when she pressed the cloth to stanch the flow. Its eyes glowed with a strange vulnerability. She realized in that moment it was every bit as alive in spirit as any flesh-and-blood animal. Together, they were simply two beings trying to survive. They stayed there for hours, waiting for the pounding footsteps and voices of the hunters to either find them or fade away. Darkness reddened with faint sunrise light filtering from broken grates overhead. Marlowe coaxed the panther back to its feet. It hobbled alongside her through the tunnel, each step echoing in the damp corridors. Occasionally, a burst of static from overhead cables sputtered. The city still had pockets of power, perhaps solar panels continuing to function even in the meltdown's wake. They navigated track after track, searching for a route back above ground, at a distance from those who hunted them. When they finally climbed a maintenance ladder and emerged onto the street, dusk was descending a second time. They had missed an entire day, half wandering below. A jagged gap opened onto a row of abandoned cars and trucks, skeletons of highways in the near distance, choking with vines. Here, nature's intrusion was not as thick. a transitional zone between the metamorphosed city's central and the dusty wastelands beyond. Marlowe leaned the panther against a vine-wrapped sedan and checked its leg again. She had little to offer in the way of mechanical repairs, but at least the bleeding had slowed. The cat regarded her with unblinking, electric eyes, the glow softened as though in gratitude. She found an old can of preserved fruit in a broken-down convenience store. Though the cat wouldn't eat, she consumed a few bites, heart heavy. Her original mission, to salvage technology, now felt overshadowed by all she'd witnessed. The city had become a testament to nature and machine coexisting in a delicate balance, each side encroaching upon the territory of the other, neither wholly dominant. Her intrusion felt both necessary and intrusive at the same time. The next morning she heard distant gunfire again, too close for comfort. Their presence was no longer a secret, and the city's monstrous scale would no longer guarantee anonymity. Marlowe decided she needed to depart. She would head back to her settlement, not empty-handed, for she carried new knowledge of what lay here, advanced robotics grafted to a living ecosystem, still functioning despite catastrophe. Perhaps that knowledge would help her people conceive of better ways to survive. The mechanical panther stood unsteadily. She wondered if it would accompany her or stay behind. Probably. It belonged here, a sovereign creature amid the city's overgrown wonder. Sure enough, after some hesitation, the panther nuzzled its head lightly against her hand, then limped away, back toward the crumbling towers under their drapery of green. Marlowe watched it vanish into the labyrinth, feeling an inexplicable pang of loss. She walked on, reaching the edges of the city by midday. Beyond lay dry plains, an unwelcoming stretch reminding her of the extensive trek she'd need to undertake before returning among familiar faces. Yet, she felt oddly resolute, standing in the threshold of two worlds, the civilization that collapsed behind her and the uncertain future that stretched ahead. Though her salvage was modest, the city had given her something intangible, a sense of untapped wonders that lived on in the darkness and leaf-filled corridors. She took one last glance at the skyline, where skeletal girders stood entwined with lush vines. Flying overhead, a flock of robotic birds circled, their metallic feathers catching the sunrise. On a rooftop, she fancied she saw the sleek shadow of the panther gazing out over its domain. In that moment, a certain fragile beauty glimmered across the ruins, a testament to nature's resilience and the resilience of the mechanical beings left behind by their makers. Whether such a place was a triumph or a failure of human ambition was an open question, but the miraculous truth remained. Life, in whatever form, found a way to endure. And so Marlowe pressed forward, leaving the deserted metropolis behind, her eyes lingering on the towering architecture braided with vines. In her heart, she carried the city's secrets, stories of mechanical grace and unstoppable growth, and the promise that maybe, someday, she would return. In the silent streets, the robotic creatures would continue their choreography beneath canopies of green, their hum and whir echoing across alleyways as they roamed in freedom among the twisted steel and thick foliage. In their lifeless eyes and mechanical hearts, they had somehow found a new life, forging their own legacy of survival in the city of overgrown wonders. Marked by awe and regret, Marlowe shouldered her pack and strode on into a future as uncertain as any.